Hi, my name's Deanna Lindberg. I am an occupational therapist at Springboard Pediatric Therapy. We are a multidisciplinary practice offering speech, OT, and PT. Today, we have a parent webinar series, Gobble and Grow, which is part of our November New Nugget series. And today we are talking about being festive, not frazzled. Before we start, I'd like to just give a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm an OT, but I'm not your OT. The purpose of this webinar is to provide general information and strategies for supporting regulation around the holidays. That said, you should always consult with your pediatrician, and this webinar is not a replacement for an evaluation or skilled intervention, but it can be a support. So the agenda for today is talking about why are the holidays sometimes stressful, handling the changes in schedule, sensory stimulation on the holidays, and coping with unpredictable foods. First thing we want to talk about are what makes the holidays different. There is so much anticipation around the holidays. You have probably many of your memories around holidays as a child. Something awesome is that our memory tends to remember the good memories. So you might have these magical experiences and you want your child to have similar experiences. That said, holidays is just any day of the week. So we come into holidays with our own expectations as adults, whether it's the food, what you envision your children experiencing, how you envision connecting with people, maybe just a day off of work, and hoping to just get some relaxation. Kids also might have expectations around the holidays. They might be excited if it's a holiday that includes gifts. Maybe they're excited to see cousins or family or friends if that's part of the holidays. They've been talking about the holidays within school. So there's excitement around the holidays. When there's excitement or there's expectations, sometimes that increases stress levels. Good stress is still stress. So that's just something to keep in mind when we're thinking about the holidays. Also, when there's expectations, sometimes we are more likely to feel disappointed if things don't live up to our expectations. So thinking about the holiday as a day that's going to still be a day of the week, and it's going to have highlights, and it's probably going to have hard times. And when we accept that, that's when we're kind of able to move through those hard points to enjoy the magic of certain holidays. Other things to keep in mind about the holidays is they tend to be a different schedule. Kids and adults tend to thrive in routine. Knowing what's coming next helps us be able to perform and live up to those expectations. So if we typically get up, get dressed, brush our teeth, have breakfast, the holidays might be pajama day in the morning. And that can, now when they're asked to get changed, maybe 2 hours later, that's a throw in the routine. So it can be a little triggering to kind of change what is typically expected. There's definitely different people around on the holidays. And that can be a great thing. We can be really excited to see Cousin Johnny. At the same time, maybe there's that uncle that always gives you extra hugs or kind of invades personal space or asks questions you don't want to answer. We probably experience that as adults, and that is also often an experience of kids. They might not have all the tools yet, and they don't have all the tools yet to cope with that. A big thing is there's different food on the holidays. For some people, that's really exciting, but for kids, that can be a little bit nerve-wracking. They might not have experienced that food. They don't know if it's a safe food or not. We have another webinar series about that. But different foods can impact the holiday experience. Like I mentioned, it's just a day. It's a day we have off. It's a day we're celebrating something. But just like every day has highlights and hard moments, so will the holidays. So give yourself grace to accept that. So how to manage these differences? Like I mentioned, holidays often disrupt our daily routine, and changes in schedule can be a sort of stress. Something that we'll talk about, and we've talked about some other webinars, but is to support the changes with visual schedules or social stories. This can help decrease the anxiety or nervousness overall, help us know what to expect, so it can be more predictable, and it's not like all of a sudden we're pivoting or changing. There's more understanding of what to expect. Sometimes, especially during holidays that include breaks, is to establish new temporary routines. And this can be helpful whenever there's a break to kind of, oh, this is our break schedule. Maybe that involves an extra hour of pajama time in the morning, but after pajamas, we do eat breakfast, brush our teeth, and then we had playtime at home, or something that becomes a routine for your family. So one way to manage the differences in the holiday is to create a social story. Social stories explain the routine and expectation, and it often helps to create a picture of what's coming next, what to expect. Uses the same concepts of why there's so many stories or TV shows that for children that kind of talk about maybe different holidays or talk about different skills, because when we can see it, we can visualize it, we've heard about it, it becomes a little bit less what to expect. Kind of like if you got a new job and they told you what to expect before day one, or this is what your first week will look like, you might feel more prepared than just going in not knowing what to expect. So social stories help create that in a child-friendly way so they know what to expect, which can help decrease anxiety or nervousness around things. In social stories, we like to put the explanation of the change in the routine. So you can put, this is what my routine on Thanksgiving morning will be like, and describe each part. I'll have an example of the social story in a moment. You can explain who will be there so they know who will be there and who won't be there. Maybe you're going to one relative's side of the family, making sure they know that relatives from the other side of the family won't be there, so they don't think that their cousin that they really like to play with is going to be at this party, and then are disappointed, and we have that emotional reaction when it's not meeting the expectations. We'll talk a little bit about taking breaks in a few moments, but the social story can talk about how to take a break, and I often talk about like a code word or a safe word that means we need a break, without it being, oh, do you need a break, and kind of singling them out, or if they're getting ramped up, giving kind of that corrective, which can sometimes cause power struggle. But having like a code word or code phrase, like, let's go read a story with me. Maybe you go read a story in a back room or in the car, and then come back but it gives enough time maybe away from the overstimulation or the events occurring, but it's something else that they're enjoy doing. Or your child can ask, can we read a book for a minute? It could be that code word, depending on their age, that they need a break, and they would like to support with that. The social stories would also discuss any new people or unfamiliar places, which sometimes can be nerve-wracking, as well as potential sensory experiences. So in a social story, we'd like to talk about the child first. So we're going to do an example with myself and Deanna, but you want to talk about them, what their likes are, and then go into the story so they help to identify with the character. So, hi, my name's Deanna, and I really like playing Legos, watching TV, and to play with my dog. Thanksgiving coming up, and it isn't my favorite holiday. On Thanksgiving, I will wake up and watch the parade with my mom and dad. We will all have breakfast together. After, we will have some time to play my favorite game with mom and dad since they are off of work. Dad will be cooking, but he can take his turn of the game with me. When we go to my aunt's, it can be overwhelming. I created a hand signal with my mom to help me if I need a break, if it gets too loud, and we will go to the car for a few minutes, the bathroom, or on a quick walk. Aunt Sue might ask me a lot of questions, and I can always ask for space, and my mom can help me. Uncle Tim can sometimes try to hug me, and I can give him a high five instead. There will be a lot of new foods. but I know there will be pasta that I like. If I want to, I can try the new foods, but I don't need to. Thanksgiving is just a different day. It will be fun and to have family time and to play with my cousins. And there may be some hard times, but I know I can come home at the end of the day and read my favorite book with my mom. Something about the social story as well is adding in things that are routine. Um, Maybe reading books at the end of the day is part of your child's routine. Ways that we can build in routine help children to feel like their needs are getting met and there's some familiarity. Also, if a lot of the day is not in your child's control, or maybe it is a little bit harder, adding in things that they like I mentioned the board game, something for them to look forward to during the day. If you know that there are definitely harder parts for them, uh, can also help them to feel ready for the day. Also, creating a holiday visual schedule. Um, Visual schedules are great because, especially for kids, it is hard to hold things in your working memory in your brain. What's coming next in what order? That's a skill that kids don't develop until a later age. So, creating a visual schedule helps them to see it, and then they can even be part of checking it off. Um, there's an app called ChoiceWorks. You can draw your own. You can write it on a whiteboard. We have another new nuggets on visual schedules for the holidays, but it helps to them to see what's going to come. You can always add in things as they come, but it creates that framework for the day. It's kind of like when you make yourself a checklist, or some people benefit from calendars on their phone, so they know what's coming. Um, Using pictures or words that are appropriate for your child's reading level. It doesn't help to have a visual schedule if they don't understand what it means. So using pictures, or things that you work on together. You can review the schedule of the day with your child, and you can even build and plan breaks. Again, we're going to talk about breaks, but planning them can help them not feel like punitive, like, oh, I'm getting revved up or overwhelmed, and now we're taking a break. It's just something that's already part of the schedule. A big one is managing family expectations. Um, One way you can help this is pre-planning or being your child's advocate. Um, every child has a different need, and a lot of times families members have their own expectations of how they expect people to act. Kind of filling in and talking to certain family members beforehand can be helpful. It can be Susie gets overwhelmed when there's a lot of noise, so I'm going to have her, if we could make it so she could eat at the end of the table or at a quieter table with a few other people, that would be really helpful. And kind of providing different options for solutions so there can be problem solving together is one aspect that can be supportive for a family. Also, maybe talking to your family members how your child likes to be greeted. A lot of people don't like hugs or people coming at them right when they come in. And say we are working on coming in and getting settled. Susie will get say hi when they're ready. So that way it takes the pressure off of having to say hi or having to give so and so a hug. You could even prepare with your child. Maybe if they don't like giving hugs or they don't like giving high fives or being near people, maybe they can make some cards for the different members of the family. And you can say, this is how we decided we wanted to say hi to everybody today. So, and you can hand them out for them. And who doesn't like getting something really sweet from a little one? So that can kind of deflect from that. You can also talk with your child about polite ways to decline unwanted hugs or questions. You can say, no, thank you. Hi. If they go for a hug, I'd prefer to give a high five. And if your child's not at the level that they can express that, you can be their advocate. And they're trusting you to be their advocate as an adult. As I talked, establishing a code word for needing space or a code signal can also be helpful so the child doesn't feel like they're being heard when they need some help. Going into food. For kids, the holidays can be a hard time because there's new food. And we are already really amped up because it's the holiday. There's different routines. So our body's a little bit more likely to be in a state of fight or flight, even if it's a positive or really excited. Think about when you're super excited, you might not feel as hungry. So our hunger signals get disrupted when we're in a state of stress, even when that's good stress. So that's something to think about when we're talking about foods. And now you're introducing potentially new foods and potentially foods that aren't their favorite. The biggest thing for the holidays is reducing the anxiety and nervousness. Rest and digest versus fight or flight. Those are the two ends of the coin. Kids are not going to want to eat, period, or especially eat any new foods if we're in a state of fight or flight. So we want to support their rest and digest. And we want to make sure that kids are eating. It doesn't have to be the food that's being served, but eating in general helps us from having those hangry responses. So if you know there's a lot of new foods, you can make sure to bring safe foods as something that can be served. You can allow sitting and taking and putting food on the plate without the expectation of eating. That can allow a child to feel like they're part of the family discussion or the family meal, but they don't need to eat what's on their plate, or they can also have a safe food either on that plate or a different plate, because sometimes they need that separation. You can also allow for them to eat from a plate that is just their safe food. Really, the holiday is about the family experience. It's not about building any new foods into their repertoire. And we want everybody in the family to feel welcome at the table. You can also talk about the food in advance, just so they know what to expect. And you can talk about the safe foods. Sometimes people prefer to eat alone, and maybe making time before everybody else eats if the stimulation's a lot for them, or after, or in a different area that you could even eat with them. And maybe they talk or kind of are at the table for the more for the meal, for the more family engagement, but eating is separate. Again, what we want to just make sure is that people and our kids are comfortable to eat on the holidays. Really having the focus not be on the food, but on the family. That's what the holidays is about. Well, yes, some of us have memories of our favorite meal on holidays. For people that food is more of a challenge, that might not be what they remember. They might remember the experiences more, and it's particularly how they're made to feel. And if they feel safe, comfortable, even though they have feeding differences, that's what's important. Another thing about food, you can bring your own plates and forks. Sometimes even kind of having a similar plate that you're used to at home can make a person feel more comfortable when they're eating. Like I said, there's a lot of hype about food, so we'll keep talking about it. As the adult, you can prep in advance, whether that is talking to your child, whether that's preparing a meal, whether that's reaching out to the people that are hosting and asking about what the menu is. Be your child's advocate and plan so that way everybody, including your child and yourself, so you're not feeling stressed the day of, oh, is there going to be something my child can eat, is at the party. You can also eat before you go. Maybe plan to have their big meal at lunch versus dinner, or have a safe meal at home right before you go. So that way they're not as likely to be hungry. And then there's less pressure around eating. You can also allow appetizers to be the meal if that's preferred. One day is not going to make or break anybody's health. So just like everybody else might be splurging in one way on the holidays, you can let your kids splurge on the holidays as well in a way that is comfortable for them around food. Another thing that can be supportive for kids is to serve things deconstructed. So what that would mean is that if you're serving sweet potatoes, maybe with marshmallow topping, having the sweet potato and then the marshmallow topping, or having an option of that, and then they can add it if they'd like, but they don't have to if they don't. So it allows them to maybe eat the safe part and have something that's similar, but not the whole thing that might be too much for them. Another example would be to have the gravy separate than the turkey. So they might feel safe eating turkey. They don't need to have the gravy poured on top. I mentioned a little bit, but being thoughtful about seating arrangements and maybe even planning in advance. If you know there's a family member that gets offended if you don't eat their food, maybe seating your child further away from them, or putting your child in between you and a cousin that they feel safe with. So that way, again, decreasing the anxiety around. Also controlling the food that they can during the day. So again, you can make sure that they have a breakfast that's safe, a lunch that's safe, and even maybe something after the party. So that way, if there's one meal that doesn't go well, you have already kind of planned out how to make sure that they're getting their nutritional needs met that day. I've alluded to this a little bit, but having breaks on the holidays can be really helpful and a really great tool to have in your back pocket. Because holidays can be overwhelming, taking breaks is helpful. Adults might even take breaks by going to the bathroom 1 or 2 extra times, even if it's to look at your phone and doom scroll for a few minutes. If you feel like there's been maybe a lot of noise or a lot of questions that you weren't anticipating, or just maybe feeling touched out, things like that. So giving your kids that opportunity as well, and they might not even know they need the break. So planning breaks, sometimes leaving the presents in the car, and you have to go asking your child, oh, let's go get the presents for your cousin Johnny. So you're giving the opportunity for them to get out of the house. You can reconnect in that moment. And then kind of recalibrate if needed. If you can also ask how they're doing, ask if they need a hug. Do you want to spend a few more minutes outside? Do you want to sit in the car for a few minutes? If they need a few minutes to recalibrate. Again, if you plan in the breaks, like getting something from the car, it makes it feel a little bit less punitive or like something unexpected happening. Why are you making me leave something? That said, using a code word that if something's getting overwhelming, or a code signal, can also be helpful. Again, maybe leaving an extra set of coloring books or other book in the car that if you needed to go get that, let's go get the coloring books for you to be able to do. That could be your code word. Even if you already got one set of coloring books, oh, there's another one, something along the line. So they feel like they can ask for a break, take that break away from the stimulation so they're reset to come back in. I know I said it before, but really want to just emphasize, it's just a day. Yes, it is a holiday, but it is just a day. There are going to be highs. You are going to have great moments, just like every day has great moments. There also might be some hard points, and that's okay. If we kind of go into that in advance, our expectations are that things are not going to go perfectly. We feel less stressed when they don't go perfectly. So that's why kind of just setting your expectations from the beginning is really important. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We are also always available for a consultation if you reach out to our main email, and we will get back to you if you look at our website. Okay, I hope everybody enjoys their holiday.